morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am your amiable host, Zainab Akrede, and I welcome you to another episode of The Business Pulse with Christine Padabo. It's wonderful to be here again. Today, we will be talking about Nigeria's economy, the gains, the risks, and what's to come. And for that, I am joined by two experts from our financial advisory and risk management team. I have Mr. Adesegun Olide and Oluwagbemiga Akisheye. It's wonderful to have you both here.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
I think this is both your second time on the show, if I'm correct.
Yeah, actually, my second time. Yeah.
Did you have fun the first time around? Are you excited for this one?
I'm glad.
Okay.
Having new type on.
Okay. So, I mean, a lot of Nigerians, including myself, have questions about the economy. For us, it's like the data that we see is not actually what is happening. It's almost like the data is not the reality. So I want us to discuss that today, unpack that idea, and just generally talk about the economy, review it from what it was at the beginning and what it is now. So I would just ask you, how would you describe in 3 words the first half of the year? I know now we're past 6 months, but how would you say that time was?
Okay. So if we were to look at the first half of the year, I would say first being stabilization, the second being resilience, and then the third being transition.
Who was resilient? Also the government.
We were as a country, I mean, our economy, right? So stabilization, first of all, being that there were certain macroeconomic indicators that were experiencing imbalances in before, and they've sort of shown improvements. One being inflation, right? H1 last year, we had 25.29 as inflation. And then we have 15.91. And then we also see the GDP, I mean, our economy growing in terms of, are we productive? Yeah, we're saying that to about 3.89 compared to the 3.13 we had in Q1 2025. So these numbers are improving. I mean, let's put reserves also, our foreign reserves went to about $51.5 billion. So these numbers, as an economy, how productive we are seeing some improvement, and that's where the stabilization bit of the thing come in place. Resilience in what sense? We saw global economic shocks, like we saw the Middle East saga here and there, and a lot of countries were wailing, not like we're totally left out, but still our naira stood his ground to some extent. Our naira stood his ground to some extent, right? And we saw our oil prices, I mean, oil prices went up, so we're basically benefiting from it, right? And then transitions being that we've seen all these economic indicators going up and here and there, and we're asking the questions as a person, as a business, and I feeling them. And I think where we are moving to now is how these numbers can then translate into something people actually feel, rather than us just pouring our numbers on there.
Okay, so if I understand what you have said in this your preamble, the economy was more focused on, or maybe not the economy, but activities that were being done in the nation or whatever was more focused on stabilizing the economy rather than transforming the living standards of the citizens who are in the country.
Somewhat. Yes, those stabilizations are to end up flowing. That's the end goal. End up flowing.
When do we begin to see the end goal?
Okay, we begin to see the end goal when we're able to then ensure that our productivity level in terms of the economy, not just only touch the numbers of the macros as in overall, but in a way whereby our income, purchasing power also grow at a rate where inflation is growing. Because inflation dropping to 15% doesn't necessarily mean that food prices are not going up. It just means it's going up slower. But how many of us can say our income levels grow as fast as that?
Okay. Do you want to add something to that, or do we just... Okay.
Before the podcast started, I was telling him how that inflation has again dropped in the July report that was given by the NBS to 15.43. But then food inflation went up to 20.38, if I recall very well. And it's just a matter of, I see it this way, that you're driving on Third Milan Bridge, you're speeding at 120, and someone is telling you you're overspeeding, so you reduce your speed to 100. Are you still speeding? Yes,
but you've reduced the speed.
So we are still having price increases, all right, but then it has eased off and it's not growing at that rate that it was growing this time last year. That's basically what the economy is saying.
Okay. So, I mean, I had mentioned this at the start, but I would like you to expatiate on it for me, right? Because what we see on the news doesn't translate to be the reality of things.
Yeah.
I mean, we watch the news, we watch the headlines. My father, an avid 10 p.m. watch out China's news, and we see they say, oh, inflation is down, reserves are up, the naira is more stable, this is that. But it's like we can't see it translate in the actual life that Nigerians are living. So would you say that the statistics that were being provided is different from what we're seeing happen in real time?
No. So the statistics are not contradicting, are not necessarily contradicting what we're experiencing. You know, like I said, you were speeding at 120, but now you've reduced it to say 100. So at some point, it begins to ease off. The point where it then matches is where our production level as a country catches up with that inflation rise. I mean, growth rate, right? So if inflation is currently at 15 and we are able to match up production that gets to that same level of movement, then you can now begin to see the balance. But then what we currently are having in the economy is our production, albeit good, is not still at the level that it should be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe the question to focus on is if income and productivity is growing faster than the prices,
Which
not
is
really
not.
that the prices are falling.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly. Yeah.
okay. So we're already in H2. I mean, we're 2 months in, 4 months to the end of the year. How would you say the economy is shaping up? What do you think we're going to see, say, November?
Okay. So I think if I'm to look at H2 and then what are those forces that will most likely drive the H2?
I mean, being that H2 has already started, so
Yeah.
what forces have you seen that are driving it?
That are
and
driving
what will drive
it.
it till
And
the
I
end?
think one of it up there is we're still going to come back. I mean, there's no way we're not going to come back to inflation, and then the mismatch that happens with inflation and then your purchasing power.
Yeah.
So how can we have an economy that the productivity or growth is in a way that it's all inclusive? It's not restricted to a sector or a certain caliber of people so much that every single person experiences a growth in income, and that growth in income would come from a lot of various things like, okay, do we have more job creations? What's the minimum wage saying? How many employers are actually putting out those things? Is the economy enabling businesses to be able to run their businesses and actually grow with it? Because whether you like it or not, input costs would keep on growing, because look at the inflation, it affects all these input costs, and these businesses are not charity cases. All right. So if I have a business and I can only take 10 employees because of the way things are, and even because of how the kind of credits I can access because of the high interest rate and the likes, I would have to, I mean, we no longer say cut your coat according to your size. It's not according to your material.
Exactly.
I would have to make do what I have, and then there are some other people who I can't include in that plan, or I can't.
So you can't my size means
So like these are some of the things we have to look at, in particularly for H2. These numbers are coming down, yes. The income levels, productivity levels, purchasing power, how are then they being affected? What is being done towards it? And under this, you have things like what's the fiscal what's it called, discipline of the government, right? How are we then managing monetary policy from now on to the end of the year? How are we then taking advantage of this oil movement that we're experiencing? Because as a country, we're a very large exporter of oil. So how are we capitalizing on it? Because everybody would expect that, oh, oil prices are going up. We are oil producing country. We export oil, but you would notice that we export crude, and then before the advent of, Dangote refinery, we would then buy refined materials at markups, right? And looking at that, we also have certain loans or certain collaterals that we've backed certain loans with using our crude oil. And so when you look at what we are producing, we can't generate current income or revenue from everything, because some are being used to replace certain things. Some are this and some are that. So these are things. There's a lot of things actually, but let's leave it to these 2-3 things I've mentioned looking at H2.
Okay, you mentioned something about monetary policy, and I want to come to that with you in terms of interest rates. So we saw that the Central Bank of Nigeria, they cut the MPR to 26.5% in February, but they maintained it, I think, May, June, or is it June or July?
Now, sure,
Okay, so do you think they can still cut down on that?
Well, I wouldn't say. I think the game that, or rather, what the CBN is trying to do is trying to play cautious, right? So yeah, inflation is dipping, or rather, inflation rate is coming down, but that does not necessarily mean that we should go and cut the rate because, like you mentioned, there are other factors to look at. Foreign exchange, foreign exchange flow. We want to also look at capital flow into the economy. For instance, I think in Q1 we had about 10.3 billion naira capital inflow. Capital inflow into the economy, but then 95% of that
I think
for
portfolio
portfolio
investments,
investments. Yeah, thank you. As against direct investments, which are direct investments now are capital infrastructures that can last longer, and with that we get more sustainable economy. But then when we look at portfolios instead, if something happens, if we begin to have an adverse economy, someone that has pumped in some money can decide to take away their money, and then that takes us back to a higher inflation. Right, and so the CBN would not, because the rate is coming down, immediately drop the interest rate. So it's a monetary policy management on their part, right? So that's really why I think they are not cutting the rate for now. Yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
I know one thing about cutting interest rate, right, is once you cut interest rates, right, it then means it's possible that naira denominated investments become a bit lower because if you cut the interest rates, other people then have to offer lower or something like that. I mean, cost of capital is now cheaper, and you as a lender or someone giving you your money, you can't expect more than what quote and unquote is being set in the market, right? So it then means that the what's it called? How attractive naira denominated investments are would most likely drop in a way, right? And then you then start looking at those inflows you mentioned, which are portfolio investments. It just basically means that a lot of people find our investment attractive and then they pump in their money in. I mean, you see a lot of treasury bills, open market operations being oversubscribed to. A lot of it. Yes, it's something nice. Being oversubscribed,
Yeah.
You see a lot of them being oversubscribed. And yes, it shows a level of confidence in the instruments we are putting out there as a country. But let's not also remove the fact that it's because these things are attractive. If we experience any adverse movement in our economy and this rates drop, it would make those things less attractive. And then those capital that we earlier mentioned that were not sticky can easily evaporate. And if these things evaporate, it then means we have less inflow in the country. It then means FX demand can basically go up. It then means that we then have to start clamoring for this FX thing to basically for people who run businesses here and there. And then this first of all would eat our naira exchange rate, which can basically in turn, when that eats our naira exchange rate, it then means that input cost will go high. Because
So what does this even mean for the average Nigerian?
So let's use a typical business, right? So let's say a bulk of my input cost is let's use that kind of business is FX denominated. If rates drop and investments or naira denominated investments are less attractive and people pull out their money, it then means we don't have a lot of foreign currency in the country. And I want to make foreign currency purchases. I have to go look for. But then what is available in the market is lesser. I then have to buy it at a higher price. So before I could buy $1 at 1.4. So let's say we have lesser in the economy. You have few, you probably won't sell it 1.8. So I'm just saying, right? You won't sell it. And by the time I buy from you 1.8 and then I go purchase what I have to purchase and then make production because I have to still run as a business. I'm not a charity organization. I have to make profits. Right? So how do I do that in a way that I consider price and at the same time I consider recouping my investments?
So you factor the cost of the exchange rate that you've gotten at a higher rate now into your production and into your pricing, and then before you know it, the prices of our goods are up again. Right? So it's a play of demand and supply somewhat, really.
And then if these prices go up, we can't always hold the inflation talk in that situation. And our incomes going up.
Okay, so that's it. Our income needs to be elevated. Okay, not you said it, not me. Okay. This naira stability that we're seeing now, is it real? What would you say to it? Is it a fluke? Are we expecting that something is going to destabilize somewhere someday in the near future before this year runs out?
Before this year runs out, I don't expect so.
Okay.
Right. Even after this year, I don't expect so. A thing that might be a factor would be the fact that we are approaching the election year. And one thing that I really fear when we are approaching the election year is policy reversals. Right. Currently, we have policies that have made, as we can see, our naira stable relatively. Right. For about 8 months now, we are still trading around 1.3, 1.4, around that figure.
Yeah.
But then if tomorrow another government comes in and says, no, we are not floating the naira again, we are going back to what it used to be, then we get to experience another instability. But then, given the economic landscape and the things that have been put in place currently, I expect more stability, all right, over the next couple of months or even the next couple of years, until there is some other policy changes or whatnot. But for now, I think we're in a good place. Really.
He has spoken a bit on it, and that was going to be my next question. But how do you think what the economy is now, or what politics is now, is going to affect our economy in 2027? I mean, we don't really know what it's going to be in 2027 because, again, we're having an election. There might be a change in government, but how do you think it's going to affect it?
Okay, so one thing I would say is Nigeria is, let's look at, we're a nation. We can also say we're an institution. And you as an investor looking outside inward, just like the way many of us assess companies we make investments in, right? I don't know how, just okay, let me not use that example, but anyways, just as the way we assess investments before we make investment, looking outward inward into a company, and then we look at the top, what are they doing there, where's their direction, what are we looking at? So the same way we have people looking at us as a country, as an institution. And so if the current government, right, looking at, okay, let's stabilize the economy, let's improve our certain microeconomic indicators before we then push into also the experiencing it, because a lot of these things, I mean, our president had told us that we would have to be patient with him, right, because these reforms are needed, but at the same time, let's not dispute the fact that we have to put certain what's this thing called, I think
This is
measures that cushion effect,
Okay,
that sort of lessens the effect a bit.
Right.
And I think that's something we haven't done so much in that area, the cushioning effect. And so what I'm saying, basically bringing it back home in terms of how does this politics, or how does the election year affect what we are going to? It's not politics itself necessarily. It's the uncertainty that comes with it. Because comes election year, comes certain political pressures that could affect what economic policies you are pushing out there, from how disciplined you are with your fiscal execution, to how you borrow, so how you manage interest rates or things like that, to even policy credibility. As an investor, I am going to be looking outward, inward into Nigeria. I mean, the next person, let's assume we have a change of government, and the person who wants subsidy and push it back in, or defloat the naira, or what's it called, reverse the floating of the naira. That's those two variables alone. Let's not talk of some other things, right? Those two variables alone is enough to cause certain uncertainty for investors. And then I'm wondering, where are you going to peg the interest rate at? Are you going to am I going to get a lot of yields from this investment if I'm going to put money into it? Like, there are just a lot of uncertainty around it, because one person has started, if the other person, a new person, comes in and doesn't buy this idea and then decides to start building from scratch again, there's a lot of uncertainty. At that point in time, I'm very sure, as a Nigerian, I would then start asking myself, okay, where are we heading to?
Yeah, not already asking.
Because I just spent like the past 3 years trying to enjoy a reform that I'm being told is to a larger
help.
boost.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that. As we begin to round up, I'd just like to also touch on oil. Nigeria is an oil exporter. We've talked about it a bit from the beginning of this. And technically, when oil prices go up, that's supposed to be good news for us. But is it really good news? What are we looking at as it comes to that?
Well, it is supposed to be a good news, or
Okay.
rather, it is a good news to an extent. But then, uh, it's a two-sided coin that we're looking at here. On one part, we are benefiting from the fact that we are, like Birmingham mentioned earlier, we are a large exporter of oil. So government revenue, we are having that. Foreign exchange gain from exporting also, we are having that. But then one thing we also need to bear in mind is that Nigeria as a country still largely, heavily relying on importation. We are importing our goods, our staples, our food items, even our industrial raw materials are being imported. I mean, some of them are largely, a large portion of them rather are being imported. So when you look at all of that inflow, it begins to draw down what exportation of oil at a higher price for us has been given. So that drawdown is why it's looking as though we are not benefiting from the increment in oil price. But really we are. If we can get to the point where, again, from our earlier conversation, increase our production, increase our output to the point where we have less reliance on all of these things. We are able to produce things for ourselves. Then we are reducing importation, and that way we now have a good balance where you can feel the oil price increment in the economy.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so in that light, you basically painted a mismatch, right? In a way whereby we have less reliance on importation and then
Higher
reliance on us exporting, right? On paper, yes, it's lovely. It's lovely. It's something we should work towards too. And I think I want to cite an example. I think it was it last year, Share Not particularly.
Yeah.
I know we're talking of oil, but I want to bring something also that we can use to explain that mismatch, right? For Share Not, we see exporting raw share nuts outside the country, and then you see some imports buying share butter, which is a refined product of it. And why do we buy them? It's because we don't have the capacity to refine them in the country. So I sell share nuts outside the country, I get capital inflow. But then people who use share butter as an input for cosmetics and let's say some other things like that, and then have to buy back into the country.
Yeah.
And then they are buying at a markup.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that mismatch? Let's say I sold share nuts for 100 naira, and then I probably have to buy back as let's say 95 naira, 102 naira. And you see that mismatch there. And yes, there are policies in place that are policies being decided on or being churned out to help us grow our own internal value chain. Particularly, I'm still going to use share nut as an example because it was something that got me so interested at that point in time. Our president gave out a policy to say, let's ban exportation of share nuts in a bid to improve the internal value chain.
Yeah.
The next question we need to then ask is, how are funds or capital being deployed into developing that infrastructure?
Yeah.
Because if you don't develop that infrastructure, the share nuts were supposed to make money from going out. It would either spoil in the country or the prices will drop, which means you as a seller would have to sell at a lower price or you'd have to suffer loss from damages of those goods. And then next question is, how are you looking for capital to build a refinery or then to build the entire value chain from market to shelves? Right. I don't know. I think
and that speaks to what you said earlier about cushioning effect.
Yeah.
So some of these things that are happening, in a way, they are good, right? But then when you look at how to manage them or how to even prepare for the goodness that comes from these policies, this oil price increment, we do not have that preparedness.
Yeah.
In the example that is cited, in fact, in the oil example, before the Dangote refinery, you would see that we export crude, but then we are importing the refined product, and all of that markup differences, mismatch are the things that are contributing to what looks like economic suffering for us because we are not having that cushion effect. We're not having that preparedness to soak in the effect of these things.
Yeah. Okay, so just to close, what would you say are your biggest reasons for optimism for the Nigerian economy?
Do you want to go first?
Why true?
I think you should start with am I optimistic?
Are you optimistic?
Yes, I'm optimistic.
So what is your reason for your optimism?
So, if we can move from a point, yes, it's nice that as a country we are getting more productive because that's what the GDP says. It's nice that inflation is dropping. Just that just means that okay, we are experiencing prices that are growing at a slower rate. Those are lovely things. Reserves growing up, capital inflow coming in.
Lovely.
These are lovely things. To be honest, let's give flowers to who deserves them.
Finally.
However, let these things come at a point. I mean, food prices are going slower, capital inflows are coming in, all of these things, productivity are going up. What are then being done to find a way to increase the purchasing power of individuals in the country? And I think this sticks with policy credibility and execution, like we earlier mentioned. And our report also identifies as a key risk for the H2 outlook, is that you started something and on paper it's good. It's to head us towards the direction. But as we go on with these things, what cushioning effects are we putting in place also? And I think my optimism is that it's a good direction you want us to go to, which I buy. I would also implore that we bring in some sort of cushioning effect as we go on with these policies. And then we also see that come what may, or come the challenges we might face, we see them through with grit and basically resilience. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say mine has optimism. I'd rather say it as a fear. Right. Especially because, like I pointed out earlier, we are approaching the election year and, anything can happen within the political space, right? And I'm looking forward to not having any adverse policy or adverse policy rather that would then, scatter some of these things that are already put in motion, right? And like Bemiga said, when we are establishing new policies, before we even roll them out, we need to look at the cause and effect, how it affects the economy at large. And then if I'm seeing the government do that, then it brings my mind down to say, okay, yeah, they have put this in place before they roll this out, so we're fine. And then this other policy that has been rolled out, I don't have fear that it would be reversed because of a political climate change and all of that. So I think again,
So really, what you are doing as Nigerian citizens is just hoping for the best.
Yeah, but the I think the best is
Yet to come?
Is yet to come. Maybe fast approaching, but really
approaching.
Let's keep
It's
hoping.
approaching.
Let's
It's
keep
approaching.
hoping.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the next episode of the Business Pulse. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.